The book of Revelation is at once both a display of dazzling detail and of daunting drama. It is filled with depictions of grandeur and grit that dance off the page and arrest our attention. It is a mesmerizing book, bursting with metaphors and messages that elicit both worship and work. It is a book that evokes imagery so exciting, so exuberant, so exhilarating, from the river of life to the throne room of God, to the battle between the dragon and the serpent, from the lamb to be slain. Revelation paints a poetic and picturesque portrait of what is to come. And there is no doubt that it is a sensational and scintillating story that summons all of our senses. However, in our familiarity with the story, and for some of us, in our fear of the story, we often pay little attention, or none at all, to one of the strongest illustrations in the story. Patmos, the setting of this great epic, the island of Patmos. John the Revelator, as we have come to know him, arrives in Patmos either by flight or by force. Either he is being exiled by Roman authorities for his witness, or he is escaping Roman authorities because of his witness. He's either fugitive or felon or parts both. For after dedicating his life to Christ, his life is now endangered for preaching Christ. And with no Christ in sight, he is banished to Patmos. Patmos is a small island, only 30 miles in circumference, yet its history makes it a land of great lore and great legend. Patmos. According to Greek mythology, it was a submerged and sunken island located at the bottom of the ocean where there is neither light nor life. Patmos. According to Clement of Alexandria, it was where estranged political captives would labor in stone mines under the whip of Roman soldiers during the day and sleep in damp, dark caves at night. Patmos. According to North African theologian Tertullian, it was a site of political punishment and banishment. Patmos, its geography was treacherous to say the least, and threatening at its best, surrounded by an unforgivably turbulent and tossing sea. It was an isolated incubator for desperation and despair. Patmos, it was a violent place, born out of ancient volcanic activity. Patmos, it was a pile of abandoned rocks, filled with rough and ragged terrain. Patmos, it was a barren place, devoid of all vegetation and life. Patmos, it was a sterile place, a desert of stone and gravel. Patmos, it was a place people were sent to die. And John, like a ship with no sail, finds himself washed along this shore of sadness and sorrow. Patmos. Have you ever been to Patmos? Even though we sit in this beautiful sanctuary with our beautiful smiles and our beautiful clothes, some of us stand with John hand in hand, befuddled and bewildered on that banished beach. Patmos. Have you ever felt submerged and sunken in the sea of life? And no matter how much you pushed and pulled and kicked, you could couldn't seem to get your head above the constant waves crashing against you. Patmos. Have you ever felt isolated and lonely upon the cold shores of the human condition? And no matter how loudly you yelled and screamed and kicked for help, no one could hear or come to your rescue. Patmos. Have you ever felt hopeless and empty, holding your seeds of aspiration amongst a garden of ground? Because no matter how hard you prayed, or how hard you worked, or how hard you fasted, nothing seemed to grow. Patmos, have you ever felt like you were in a place you were meant to die? Forgotten by family and friends. Forsaken by Savior and Lord. Have you ever been to Patmos? It's a dark place. A dismal place. And some of us don't even have to use our imagination at all to answer this question. For we have stamped this passport of pain far too many times. We know all too well what Patmos feels like. Losing a loved one can feel like Patmos. Losing a job can feel like Patmos. Losing a friend can feel like Patmos. Losing some money can feel like Patmos. A doctor's report can feel like Patmos. Or just navigating the daily isms of our world can feel like Patmos. And some of us are coming to the end of this year feeling stranded in Patmos. And what a painful experience. It is to come to the cusp of something new, dealing with something old. To look back on all that has occurred this year and see nothing but darkness and brokenness, strife and struggle, trial after trial, disappointment after disappointment, frustration after frustration. For as much as we sing and dance in the ecstasy of the holiday season, if we are all being honest, after a year like this, it's hard to believe in you. Hard to see new. Hard to think new. Some of us come to the end of the year with our souls feeling shipwrecked just like John on this shore of sadness. Patmos. But it is here, in Patmos, in this particular predicament, that John begins to see new. The Bible says, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth." John is in a place of pain and agony, but still sees new. John is in a place of abandonment and loneliness, but still sees new. John is in a place of punishment and banishment, but still sees new. John is in a place of lifelessness and hopelessness, but somehow, some way sees new. One must have a deep and abiding hope to see new. One must have a profound and persevering faith to see new. And this is both a personal and communal challenge for us today. We must see new on our personal Patmos, but we must also see new for our people. For there can be no transformation if we don't see new. If the old things don't first pass away in our hearts and in our heads, we will never see them in our homes. We must see new. We must see new in the there and then in order to fight for change in the here and now. And make no mistake, seeing newness in the midst of the brokenness of this world is an act of civil disobedience in and of itself. To see new is to challenge the status quo. To see new is to have a rebellious imagination. We must see new. We must see new institutions, uninhibited by privilege and power. We must see new judicial systems, unconstrained by bigotry and prejudice. We must by races and sexes and classes. We must see new churches unobstructed by patriarchy and homophobia. We must see new neighborhoods unrestricted by violence and drugs, and despite being on Patmos, John sees new. This is a radical vision that includes liberation and freedom and justice, but does not include the sea. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. This is significant because throughout the Bible, in story after story, the sea serves as a symbol of chaos and confusion that often limits one from seeing anything else but chaos and confusion. The Israelites got distracted by the sea. Being chased by Pharaoh's oncoming army, they were convinced that the water before them would be their tombstone. Peter got distracted by the sea, bid by Jesus to join him on the water, but when the waves began to crash around his feet, he began to sink. The disciples got distracted by the sea. As the waters crashed violently against the sides of their humble vessel, they became filled with fear, even with Jesus on the boat. And in our text today, for those who find themselves on Patmos, the sea was a mighty barrier and constant reminder of their imprisonment and isolation. And for all of us, it is so easy to focus on everything going wrong around us. In this social media age, we are constantly bombarded with images of chaos and confusion that our vision can be limited to solely chaos and confusion. But John here challenges us to see beyond the sea. Now, I do not suggest we fall into some sort of religious escapism or pretend our perils and problems in life are not real. But I am suggesting that if chaos and confusion is the extent of our vision, we will easily drown in hopelessness and despair. We have to see new. John can see new because his focus is not limited to the sea. John's focus is on the one who can part the sea. John's focus is on the one who can calm the sea. John's focus is on the one who can walk on the sea. John's focus is on the one on the throne. And because John can still see the one on the throne, John can't see new. Please take note of the location of God in the text. John writes that God is the one on the throne. John is in Patmos, and God is on the throne. John is in the place of Adam, and God is on the throne. John is in a place of pain, and God is on the throne. John is in a place of suffering, and God is on the throne. Upon first glance, this may seem contradictory. This may seem problematic. This may seem scandalous. Some could read this as proof of divine ambivalence or abandonment in a time of tribulation. Yet there is nothing further from the truth. The truth of this statement is not in the physical location of God. For the Bible teaches that God is omnipresent, that God is everywhere. The truth of this statement is in the social location of God. John is not trying to make a statement about where God is. John is trying to make a statement about who God is. The verse is not saying while we cry and suffer, God is in some otherworldly gold-ornate throne room. No, the verse is trying to tell us that while we may be in Patmos, God is still in control. We may be in Patmos, but God still has dominion. We may be in Patmos, but God still has authority. We may be in Patmos, but God still has power. God is on the throne. God is on the throne. It's a statement of irony because someone on a throne banished John to Patmos. Dominated the empire, the one who sat on the Roman throne, sentenced John to Patmos. But here, John's writing suggests that there is another throne, that there is another king, that there is another power, and while man may have sentenced John to Patmos, God will have the final say. God is on the throne. It's a statement of both acknowledgement and expectation. For if God be on the throne, the sea cannot last forever. If God be on the throne, the chaos cannot last forever. If God be on the throne, the confusion cannot last forever. If God be on the throne, the pain cannot last forever. If God be on the throne, the brokenness cannot last forever. If God be on the throne, the darkness cannot last forever. If God be on the throne, the tears cannot last forever. My grandmother would say it this way: trouble don't last, can't last always. And that's good news this morning. That whatever painful place you find yourself in as the year ends, it won't have the final say, because God is on the throne. Your current circumstance won't be your conclusion. Your current destination won't be your destiny. God is on the throne. God is on the throne. Because God is on the throne, it can't last forever. The verse continues with a very interesting illustration of a wedding. That God sees the new coming down into Patmos like a bride and their groom. A ahistorical and lazy reading of this can see this as God sanctioning a certain type of relationship or marriage. But a critical reading of the text shows that this is the example of the intimacy God desires to have with God's people. That even in Patmos, God is with you. See, one of the foremost tricks of the enemy is to convince believers that they are by themselves. To isolate believers from their community and their Creator. But this verse shows us a deeper and stronger level of intimacy God has with God's people. That even if you are on Patmos, God is with you. That your Patmos predicament does not hinder God's presence. And while God's presence may not always keep you out of Patmos, God's presence will keep you while you're in Patmos. That God's presence may not always keep you out of trouble, but God's presence will keep you while you're in trouble. And that may be one of the few promises I can give you for the new year. That God is with you. I can't promise you a house. I can't promise you a new job. I can't promise you a new car. I can't promise you a honey or some more money. But I can promise that God is with you. Now, I don't know what will happen next year, but God is with you. I don't know how next year will end, but God is with you. I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I know who holds tomorrow, and that God is with you. That means if you get sick, the healer is with you. If you have to cry, the comforter is with you. If you lose a friend, the friend is with you. If you lose a sibling, the brother is with you. If you lose your mother, the mother is with you. If you lose your father, the father is with you. If life gets dark, the light is with you. God is with you. God is with you. John is in this desolate and discarded, this disgusting and this damnable destination. And God begins to speak. I don't know how long John had been there before God spoke. I don't know how many nights John cried and yelled into the night before God spoke. I don't know how many nights John thought about giving up and giving in before God spoke. I don't know how long John fasted and prayed and fasted before God spoke. But we know God spoke. Amongst the rubble, God spoke. Amongst the decay, God spoke. Amongst the brokenness and barrenness, God spoke. Amongst the death and despair, God spoke. God spoke in Patmos. Wow, it would be nice if I could promise God would deliver us out of every Patmos. I cannot promise this. But I am comforted and knowing and confident and promising that not only will God be with you in every Patmos, but God will speak to you in every Patmos. There is no place too painful for God to speak. There is no situation too sorrowful for God to speak. There is no moment too murky or messy for God to speak. There is no terrain too treacherous for God to speak. There is no wave too boisterous for God to speak. God will speak in your Patmos. And when God speaks, when God's voice bellows down from the balconies of eternity and meets us, and our souls, no sea can hinder that. No tears can hinder that. No depression can hinder that. No lifelessness can hinder that. And so John begins to write the very voice of God. Can you see him? Clothes withered and torn from battling the elements. His nails broken and dirty from the long hours of mining coal. His back bent and contorted from trauma and abuse. And on bended knee, with only the stars and the moon to serve as light hands, shaking from the coldness of the night, John writes the words of God, God's self. See, the home of God is among the mortals. God will dwell with them. They will be God's people. And God will be with them. God will wipe every tear from their eye. Death will be no more. Mourning will be no more. Crying will be no more. Pain will be no more. For the first things have all passed away. Most of us have become acquainted with the words in this text when we have heard them rendered at burials of our loved ones. A funeral is not complete until we have uttered these powerful words over the remains of those who have once walked with us. Yet these words aren't just meant to eulogize those of us who have fallen asleep. These words aren't just meant to comfort those whose loved ones have completed the end of the human condition on earth. No, these powerful words are meant to signal the end of the seas of the human condition. These powerful words aren't just to be spoken over the dead, but for those who live in some dead situations. John is in Patmos, but writes God is among us. That's a eulogy for loneliness. John is in Patmos, but writes God is with them. That's a eulogy for desperateness. John is in Patmos, but writes God will wipe every tear from their eye, and that's a eulogy for brokenness. John is in Patmos, but writes death will be no more. That's a eulogy for hopelessness. John is in Patmos, but writes mourning and crying, and pain will be no more. That's a eulogy for sadness. John is in Patmos, but writes the first things will be biblical readers, we have to ask how John writes this. How does John write with so much faith? How does John write with so much hope? How does John write with so much certainty and audacity? What gives him the hope to believe in a place like Patmos? What gives him the hope to see new in a place like Patmos? And I believe the answer for him and for us in our personal Patmos is in verse number 5. It records that God says, write these things, for my word is trustworthy and true. Trustworthy means it's able to be relied upon. True means it's in accordance with the state of affairs. Trustworthy and true. Trustworthy means it's reliable. True means it's dependable. Trustworthy means it's unfailing. True means it's unmovable. Trustworthy means it's secure. True means it's steadfast. Trustworthy means you can count on it. True means you can swear by it. God's word, God's promises are trustworthy and true. So if you find yourself this morning in a place of pain, if you find yourself this morning in a destination of despair, if you find yourself this morning in a situation of somethingness, just remember that God's words are trustworthy and true. Many are the afflictions of the righteous,